In the shadow of a Detroit funeral in October 2025, Nathan Whitmore, a humble high school history teacher, clutches a mysterious plane ticket to Rome, his only inheritance from his grandfather, Roland Whitmore, a shipping tycoon. Mocked by his greedy cousins who revel in their lavish bequests, Nathan embarks on a journey that unravels a hidden legacy. From a single envelope, he discovers a secret family, a $47 million vineyard empire, and a truth that redefines wealth, trust, and the chess game Roland played with masterful precision. This is a tale of unseen moves, family secrets, and the quiet power of choosing purpose over pride. Point 1. Setting the scene and introducing Nathan. The air was thick with grief and greed that October afternoon in 2025, as I stood at my grandfather's funeral, clutching a worn envelope that held a single plane ticket. My name is Nathan Whitmore, a high school history teacher from Detroit, and this is the story of how the darkest day of my life became the first step toward a truth I never imagined. My cousins, drunk on their newfound millions, mocked me as I held that envelope, their laughter sharp as broken glass. 6 months later, they were the ones pleading for my mercy. Let me take you back to that day and introduce the players in a game my grandfather, Roland Whitmore, designed with a master's precision, a game that unfolded long after his final breath. Point 2. The family players first. There was Preston, my older cousin, strutting in a tailored suit that screamed wealth he hadn't earned. His eyes gleamed with visions of himself as the new king of Whitmore Shipping Industries, already rehearsing his first boardroom speech. His sister Mallory hid her glee behind oversized sunglasses, no doubt imagining her next Instagram post aboard a yacht she assumed was hers. Their parents, Uncle Vernon and Aunt Beatrice, stood like predators circling a prize, Vernon's fingers twitching toward the lawyer's documents, Beatrice's smile as polished as the diamonds on her wrist. And then there was me, Nathan, the quiet one, the one who drove 3 hours in a rattling Honda Civic to say goodbye to the only man who ever truly understood me. Grandfather Roland had built an empire from a single fishing boat, turning it into a shipping giant that dominated ports across the globe. Everyone wanted a slice of his legacy, everyone except me. All I wanted was one more chess match with the man who taught me that the game is not won by the loudest moves, but by the ones no one expects. Point 3. Nathan's life before the funeral. My life was a rhythm of routine. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., my alarm jolted me awake in my cramped Detroit apartment, where a water stain on the ceiling mocked me with its vague resemblance to a lopsided heart. The neighbor's dog barked on cue, and Mrs. Alvarez's Tai Chi routine echoed through the thin walls. I taught history at Lincoln High School, guiding teenagers through the complexities of the Civil War and the New Deal, finding purpose in their questions and epiphanies. Being a Whitmore meant something in the world of yacht clubs and private jets, but I'd chosen a different path. One of lesson plans and secondhand furniture, far from the glittering excess of my family. My father, Dennis, had understood that choice. He was the steady hand in grandfather's company, the one who fixed Vernon's mistakes without ever seeking credit. His death when I was 15, a heart attack at his desk, left a void that never healed. His final words to me were a warning. Don't let them reshape you, Nathan. They tried with me, and it cost me everything. My mother, Grace, a nurse who worked grueling shifts at Detroit General, kept us afloat after Dad's death, even when we learned he'd sacrificed his shares to bail out Vernon's bad deals. She never spoke her anger, but I saw it in her eyes at Dad's funeral, a quiet fire that needed no voice. Point 4. Grandfather Roland's legacy and chess lessons. Grandfather Roland was a paradox, a man who turned a Navy discharge check into a shipping empire but believed wealth was worthless unless earned. His gifts were never lavish, a 20 bill with a note to make it grow, or a book on logistics for Christmas. But his chess games were different. They started when I was 10 after I won a school tournament. He arrived at our apartment with a worn chessboard and a challenge. Let's see what you remade of. I lost spectacularly, but he returned every Sunday and those games became our unspoken bond. You play like your father, he once said, his voice heavy with something I couldn't name. Too focused on saving your pieces, not enough on claiming the board. When I pushed back saying I didn't want to sacrifice everything for a win, he grinned, a rare, genuine smile. That's why you're the one I watch, Nathan. Point 5. The funeral and the will. The Rochester Country Club was a gilded cage that day, its oak-paneled walls steeped in the scent of old money and cigar smoke. We gathered around a polished table for the reading of Grandfather's will, the air thick with anticipation. Mr. Harwick, the family lawyer, adjusted his glasses and spoke with measured calm. Roland was precise about his wishes. He reviewed this will days before his passing. Vernon leaned forward, his knuckles white with expectation, already claiming the CEO title in his mind. Harwick began. To Vernon and Beatrice, I leave the Hamptons estate and the investment portfolio in account ending 471. Beatrice gasped, clutching Vernon's arm. The Hamptons. He knew how much we loved it. To Preston, Grandfather left Whitmore Shipping Industries, with a condition to maintain jobs for a year. Preston stood practically crowing, his phone already out to broadcast his victory. Mallory received the Manhattan penthouse and the yacht Serenity, her squeal echoing like a social media notification. Then Harwick turned to me, his eyes soft with something like regret. To Nathan Whitmore I leave this. He handed me a faded envelope with my name and Grandfather's unsteady script. Inside was a single plane ticket to Rome, one way, departing in 2 days. The room erupted in laughter. Preston snatched the ticket, waving it like a punchline. Coach class? Classic. Enjoy your little vacation, teacher. Mallory filmed me smirking. This is gold. Don't worry, Nathan. Maybe he left you a gelato voucher too. Vernon's voice was smug. Roland always said you didn't have the stomach for business. At least he gave you a trip. Beatrice's pity was rehearsed. Rome's charming in autumn. A sweet gesture. My mother, silent until now, asked, Is that all, Mr. Harwick? He nodded. There's a letter for Nathan to be opened in Rome. Preston's laughter followed me out, but as I left, I remembered Grandfather S. words from our last game. The best moves are invisible until it's too late. Point 6. Nathan's decision to go to Rome. That night I sat at my thrift store kitchen table, staring at the ticket. My bank account showed $1,192.14, barely enough for rent, let alone a transatlantic gamble. My car needed repairs, and 40 essays waited for grading. Logic screamed to stay, but Grandfather's voice echoed louder. During our final chess game, he'd been different. Less guarded, almost tender. Trust isn't blind, Nathan, he'd said, moving his bishop in a way that baffled me. It's knowing when to follow even when the path is hidden. Your father trusted me once and I let him down. But you're different. You don't chase what shines. I called my mother. I'm going, I said. Her voice was steady. I knew you would. Roland called me last month, said to back whatever you chose. She paused. Your father once said Roland wasn't always the man we knew. Maybe this is about who he was before. I arranged a substitute at school, packed a small bag with my father's journal, and headed to the airport, noticing a faint 1947 scribbled on the envelope. Grandfather's 22nd year, the year he left the Navy. Point 7. The flight and arrival in Rome. The flight was a blur of discomfort. Middle seat, snoring neighbor, and a woman blasting her movie without earbuds. As Detroit faded below, I thought of Preston in Grandfather's office, Mallory on her yacht, Vernon and Beatrice counting their millions. But I felt a strange certainty, like I was moving toward something meant for me. At Rome's Fiumicino airport, I navigated the chaos of immigration, answering I don't know to the officer's question about my visit's purpose. In the arrivals hall, a man in a sleek suit held a sign with my name. Mr. Whitmore, I'm Lorenzo, he said, his accent warm. Your grandfather arranged this. He led me to a Mercedes that felt like another world, explaining we were headed to Monturia Estate in the Sabine Hills, a place Grandfather had owned for 45 years, visiting every September. The drive through olive groves and vineyards was surreal, the beauty almost overwhelming. Lorenzo shared that his father had driven Roland before him, a 20-year tradition I'd never known. Point 8. The revelation of the secret family. The estate was a vision. Golden stone, sprawling terraces, gardens that whispered history. An elderly woman emerged from the villa, her silver hair catching the sunlight, her eyes mirroring grandfather's. "Nathan," Lorenzo said, "this is your grandmother, Sophia Whitmore." The words hit like a tidal wave. "My grandmother died," I stammered. Sophia took my hands, her touch steady. "Your American grandmother Carol passed. I'm alive, Nathan, and I've waited to meet you." Inside, the villa was warm, not ostentatious, lined with photos of a young Roland, laughing in love, married to Sophia in 1947. She told me their story, a wartime romance in Rome, a vineyard built from nothing, a life interrupted by the Korean War. Roland met Carol, Vernon's mother, and chose to live two lives torn between duty and love. Sophia handed me documents. Whitmore Vineyards International, a $47 million empire, all mine. A video from grandfather confirmed it. "You trusted me, Nathan," he said, his voice calm. "Your cousins got what they chased, empty prizes. The company's bankrupt, the penthouse mortgaged, the yacht leased. But you chose purpose. This vineyard, this family, is yours. Your uncle Augusto, your cousins Marco and Elena, they're real, Nathan. Be kinder to Preston than he was to you." Checkmate. Point 9. The aftermath and Nathan's new life. I stayed 3 weeks, learning the vineyard's rhythms with Augusto, who resembled my father so closely it hurt. Marco and Elena embraced me, sharing stories of a Roland who worked the fields and laughed freely. Back in Detroit, Preston called 23 days later, his voice broken. "The company's gone, the house, the penthouse, everything's lost." I offered him a job managing U.S. distribution for Heredita wines, no ownership. He took it. Mallory, humbled, joined the business, now engaged to Lorenzo's son. Vernon and Beatrice downsized, finding unexpected contentment. My mother retired to a California guest house, painting at last. I teach part-time, spending summers in Italy, where my students laugh that their teacher owns a vineyard. I use it to teach trade and family legacy. The last bottle of grandfather's wine, labeled Heredita 2024, sits unopened, inscribed, "For Nathan, who knew the real game was never about the board in front of him." Point 10. Closing reflection. Every Sunday I play chess, sometimes with Augusto, sometimes with students, sometimes alone, picturing grandfather's sly grin. He taught me that wealth isn't money, but truth, family, and trust in the unseen. My cousins chased the obvious board. I was invited to the real one, hidden in a country I'd never known. If this story resonated, share it with someone who needs a reminder that the smallest gifts can hold the greatest truths. Comment below about a time something small changed your life, and subscribe for more stories of secrets, legacies, and the moves that win the game.